Okay, hello again, and on to the next project. So this is the starting of the wiring system. I am, of course, this bus has a, like every other MCI that I know of, has a 24 volt system. I'm converting to 12 volt. What I'm going to do is leave the 24 volt charging system, batteries starting, that engine control, so the Jake brake is 24 volts. I'm not going to change any of that. But what I'm going to do is convert everything to 12 volt, everything else to 12 volt, and then just control those systems, the 24 volt systems that I need to leave with relays. So rather than running a separate 12 volt alternator and batteries and all that, I'm going to use the starting batteries that it has. I'll leave that whole system, and I'm using this 24 volt to 12 volt 85 amp buck converter. And so the output side of this, which is this terminal here, is 12 volt, 24 volt goes in here, ground. So I'll just use the main power feed, the 24 volt power feed to feed it, and then output 12 volt to this 22 circuit universal street rod wiring harness. And it has, in theory, everything I need to wire it up. That Flaming River steering column that's there, that's a GM, a GM reproduction or whatever you want to call it. So this wiring harness has the steering column wiring plug all pre-wired, and of course this is different than a car, so some of the circuits are going to have to go into different places. Of course, so everything that goes to the back of the bus is going to need to be extended, but all the headlight, the dash, I'm going to have more gauges. Then I'm going to have 14 gauges. This is set up for 6, so I'll have to modify those circuits, but everything is here. It looks like decent instructions. I've never used I got this one from Speedway Motors. I've never used this specific one before. I've used Painless and that kind of thing, and they all worked out really nice. So hopefully this one will be the same. This is pretty, I don't know, tedious, time consuming. So I don't know how much of this I'll film. I don't think you guys are going to be particularly interested in watching me wire a bus. But I will, video the finished product or whatever, and go from there. But anyways, I'm going to get started. All right, so yeah, everybody that's commented on the on this wiring system seems to be interested in it. So I guess I'll film it. I didn't think anybody would be interested in it, but fair enough. If you are, then let's do it. So I'll show you where I'm started here. So explain this a little bit. As everybody probably knows, these MCI buses are 24 volt, and I think I mentioned that already. I am going to convert this to 12 volt. So, and I'm not going to run, a lot of people will run a separate 12 volt alternator on the engine, separate batteries, 12 volt batteries, and run all the 12 volt systems off of that. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to run, I'm going to use the original 24 volt alternator exclusively. I'm going to use the 24 volt starting system, the engine shutdown, all that stuff on the engine that's 24 volt, the Jake brake, all that stuff's all 24 volt. So I'm not going to change any of that. Where I'm going to change it down to 12 volt is in this wiring harness for all the control circuits. I think I mentioned some of this before, but you know, I like repeating myself, so here we go. Anyway, this is a 24 volt to 12 volt converter, called a buck converter, and this wire here comes from the chassis batteries, the starting batteries, and then it converts it here to 12 volt on this lead here. And this wiring harness, this fusible link that's here would ordinarily go to the starter on your car that you would install it on. In this case, it's going to go to this converter here. This is the main power lead in here, and all these different, you know, circuits I got to run all over the place. Some of them, you know, they're all separated into, like, this is all the rear wiring. This being the engines in the rear, you know, it's not set up for that. So the engine compartment wires, some of them which are in this bundle here, I'll have to take out. Like, I'll have to separate them out and add them to this bundle because the engine's in the rear. So you know, I have to customize it a fair amount, but it's way easier than starting from scratch. Gives you a modern fuse panel, you know, your flashers are in there, all that stuff. So this is a 22 circuit one, as I think I mentioned before. It just plugs right into, because it uses a GM plug, as this column does. It just plugs right into this steering column, all the signal light switches and horn button and all that. In fact, the horn relay works. You probably can't hear that, but you know, it works. This harness here that I've run up here already, that's all the dash lights, or the dash, you know, your gauges, turn signal indicators, high beam indicator, all, you know, all that stuff that goes onto the dash. So rather than having to run all individual wires, you know, figure all that stuff out, it's basically done for you. You just have to run the wires. So this, you know, this bundle here, this goes to your ignition switch. So you just have to run, you know, this up to the dash as well. I'll feed them through the hole up there that's for all the wires to run through, and you know, and stuff like that. So the, let's see, the alternator wire, I won't be using that because the alternator is already wired up. So, you know, some of the stuff is used and some of it isn't. The headlight wiring, this is, I believe, the headlight circuit here. That's the dimmer switch plug, and I'm going to put a dimmer switch not on the floor, but I'm going to replace this turn signal with a the turn signal switch here with a you can get them with a button on the end here that is the dimmer switch, and that's what I put in the other bus as well. So I'm going to do that on this as well. Works really nice. So that, you know, this wire here, rather than going down to a dimmer switch on the floor, these wires will just go to up to that. The wire, you know, the headlight wiring, obviously that's going to go up to the front, signal lights, you know, all that kind of stuff. But a lot of the wires are going to, that would ordinarily go to the front, will go to the back. So anyways, that's where I'm at this point. I will just keep, as usual, I'll just keep adding little bits as I go, as I make progress. Oh, and another little complication is a couple of years ago, Dad took all of the factory wiring components out of here, and at that time my plan was to replace the wires, all the wiring harness, right to the back of the bus. And so he cut all the wires off right here, because that's what I asked him to do. And you know, now that we're getting at it, the wires that were up in here that were all exposed to the elements and that, they're in pretty rough shape, but we cut them all off here, and these wires, they're almost like brand new. Like there's nothing wrong with them at all. So rather than run wires to the, whole new wiring, all wires all the way to the back of the bus, I'm going to tie into these as many as I need. There's so here's the complication: 48 wires in that bundle, and I think I counted them out to 18 in this one, something like that. And I only need, I think I need 16 circuits to the back of the bus. So that's all the wires I'm going to need. So, and because I got them to cut these off, I don't know which wire's which. So we have to trace those. We'll just put power to a wire at the back, and and put a test light on them on each one of these wires until we find the one. It's going to take some time. It's going to be tedious, and it's a pain in the neck because they all had little labels on them that with a number that show that identified it as which circuit it was. So I've screwed that all up. So plans change. Actually, I never expected these wires to be in as good a shape as they are. There's nothing wrong with any of this stuff. So why run all new wires? And it all goes to a junction box at the back. So we'll just identify. It won't take that long to do, but we'll just run one wire at a time and find the circuits back there that we need, and then I guess I'll just cut the rest of them off, or just roll them up and bundle them up in case I have to add a circuit somewhere in the future, something like that. So I have no idea what that's for, to figure that out. Anyways, yeah, so by cutting them off, I complicated it a little bit. If it was, if the wires were all up in here and had the little tags on them still, I would know which one was which, and I could still have cut the wire off that wasn't any good. I just would have to do it one at a time. Now I've just complicated it, and then what I'm going to do is take all these wires here, and I'm going to just splice them into this existing wiring harness. So anyways, that's the plan. Okay, so as I'm running these wires, it occurred to me that I should probably explain. So each of these wires is marked what it is and a circuit number on it. So if if you're tearing it all apart and you find a wire that you don't know what the heck it's for, it's marked on the wire every so many inches. And in the instructions, so this one here is, we'll take this as an example, high beam headlight, and it's circuit 11A. So if you look on here, you got headlight, high beam, 11A, and it identifies it as a light green wire. So it makes it pretty easy to run all this stuff and get it in the right position. And this, what I'm doing right now is this is set up for a front engine vehicle. This, of course, is rear engine. So all these wires that would typically run to the front of the engine, some of them are front, some of them I want to go to the front, but some of them I don't. And for instance, anything to do with the engine, I don't want to go to the front, it's got to go to the back, but all the lights need to go to the front. So I got to separate all the wires here into two bundles, and and send the light wire, the wires for the lights, the horn, all that kind of stuff to the front, and the lights for the wires that have anything to do with the engine need to go to the back. So that's what I'm doing right now, is just separating these. Hope this isn't getting too long and complicated for you guys, but I'll try and explain it as best as I can as I'm going along. Okay, so here's the mess we have to deal with at the back of the bus. This is the big junction box at the back of the bus. Like this I think what we're going to do is, here's the wiring harness that comes from the front. We'll just disconnect all these wires, strip all of this stuff out of here, and start from scratch. And this is the kind of shape the wires under the dash and everything we're in too. They're all, you know, just pretty much shot. That's why I was going to replace all the wires right to the back of the bus. But in the harness itself, which comes, there's the harnesses there. In those harnesses, you know, they're out of the weather and everything. They're just fine. There's no problem with them at all. It's just when it's, you know, the ends of them where it's exposed to the, you know, to the elements and whatnot, that they get they deteriorate really bad. I mean, heck, they're 45 years old, so I mean they've done pretty good. But you know, rather than try and reuse those, we'll just replace them. And we don't need all those circuits anyways. There's just way more stuff in there than we need. Like, you know, I think I've figured it out to 16 or 17 circuits that we need to come back here, and there's, I don't know, 60 or something. So all kinds of bus stuff that we don't need anymore. So anyways, that's the plan. Start stripping this stuff out of here.